Hello and welcome back to the Simple Politics podcast, the first podcast of December. 2024 is slowly ebbing away.
It is. We've just been talking about people's Spotify playlists. And actually it's really fun because this podcast has appeared on quite a few people's and they've shared that, and that's lovely. Yeah. So that's nice.
Yes.
But it does mean we are in the end stages of this year.
Are we not going to address the fact that we started this by saying we're the first podcast of December?
Yeah.
This isn't even coming out till the 6th of December.
No.
There's been loads of podcasts.
No,
first
our
of ours.
first podcast of December.
That's not what it says. It's not what you said. This kind of odd claim. Here we are, the first podcast of December. Well done, everybody. What?
With the context, it's clearly the first of our podcasts of December.
It wasn't clear to me.
I trust Charlotte. Charlotte is a doctor, let's not forget. And
yes.
So therefore, hands down.
I say it made sense.
I get the impression that Charlotte would read out whatever. She Ron Burgundy's it. I reckon that whatever you write down, Diane, Charlotte just reads it out. But also, yes, enough of that. We do have to stop and say, Dr. Charlotte John, she's done it. I posted about it yesterday, but what a hero. Just super, super, super brainy and super tenacious and super just getting it done. Gritted teeth, getting through it. And what Charlotte's done, what Dr. John has done, is add something new to the world of academia. Something that wasn't there before. The world is brainier because of Charlotte John. Even though she does just read out whatever nonsense Diane's written. The world is brainier because of Charlotte John.
Yes. Everyone really needed to know about the spatial legitimation of a market. It's changed the world.
I think it's genuinely interesting.
You haven't read it, so that's why it's interesting. And I do read out what Diane puts because I kind of want to see Tan's reaction at this point.
Exact.
Right. Anyway, enough of these two. I've my false praise for Charlotte is evident. Last week, I spoke about Patreon because we need Patreon money to make this podcast work, and a few people have joined up since then. Not even on the bottom tier. People have joined up. There's various tiers on there, and I just want to say thank you. Whenever anyone joins our Patreon community, it means a lot. But to those people who heard me say, "Team, I need your help," and have stepped up to help, that's hugely, hugely, hugely special. So thank you. We're on our way to making just covering the whole thing, to make it pay for itself. Again, we take no profit whatsoever from the Patreon. It all goes into paying for the podcast. In fact, we are currently paying for extra to the podcast. So if you want to help, if you want to join those lovely people and help just make this thing pay for itself, join the team, then you can do so at patreon.com/simplepolitics. £3 is the lowest tier, and then they go up a bit. I think there's a 5, and I know there's a 5 and a 7 because I've seen them come through this week. I think there's ones higher than that. Someone had a chat with us because there's a tier in which you can talk, you can have a meeting, have a chat with us. And she seemed to enjoy it. I don't know why. I think I would pay to not have to speak to Diane and Charlotte on a daily basis. Yeah. But that's where we are. We'd love to hang out with you if you want to do that. SP's always been about community. This is a podcast that, listen, it's on some people's Spotify Wrapped because people who like this podcast like it a lot. You listen a lot. We don't have a huge number of listeners, but the ones we do are... Well, we're a community together, and we are. You ask questions, we chat to you, we do all that stuff. So, the Patreon's there if you can help us out on that. And thank you to the ones who have.
Yes, thank you. Right, it's time to move on to the top posts of the week. So this is where we take a look at the most popular posts from the last 7 days. Tatton, what was our third most popular post of the week?
This was the old marbles, which aren't actually marbles. It'd be so much cooler if they were like the Elgin marbles, and they were like round balls, and you could like throw them and stuff. My 80s childhood, that marbles featured very heavily. So like 200 years ago, we wandered over to Greece, and we were like, oh, they're nice. And we put them in a bag, and we took them home with us, okay? And they've been here ever since. And now the people in Greece are like, can we have our ball back, mister? And this mister, as it turns out, is George Osborne.
British Museum.
Because he's no longer the Chancellor of the Exchequer, but he now runs the British Museum and does a podcast. Quite a self-important podcast. Their podcast sends us a press release every time they go out to tell us what they've said. We don't send anyone a press release.
No.
Well, this is Diane on the Liberal Democrats.
Hold the front page.
Yeah, I mean, I can't pretend to be impartial on this. It just seems utterly ridiculous that we're not just giving them back. Because one of the reasons we've given in the past is that we can look after these things. We have some serious goodness at looking after stuff. The British Museum has the kind of, best experts in the world looking after ancient stuff. So what the Greeks have done is they've built a special museum with all the stuff in it to show that they can look after it well, but it's empty because they're not there. Like, look how well we're going to look after them here, where they belong. I don't know why. We gave somebody back their crown jewels in January or February.
We did.
When we did that, it was only for a 6-year loan. Well, I don't get it. I don't get why we're doing this. Yeah.
And I think the name's deceiving, isn't it? As you said, they're not marbles. They're literally statues. They're part of a building.
Yeah, exactly.
And so in Greece, there's just this gap where they should be.
Yeah.
Very odd. Anyway, Diane, what was our second most popular post of the week?
Well, I expect everyone to jump in, but I'll give you the synopsis of this. So this was indeed the Liberal Democrats. So they proposed a bill in the week about electoral reform, about moving to a proportional representative. You know what I mean, a PR system. And basically, the MP who put it forward, Sarah Olney, gave a really good speech around this. And I think maybe if I just can pull a couple of little things about what she said and why it was important, because they won the vote by 2 votes. And what's also pretty amazing about it is that 59 Labour MPs voted for it as well, which was more Labour MPs voting for it than against it. So that's quite important, even though we'll get on to the fact that it doesn't really matter and it's not going to happen. As Tatton described it, as a pumpkin. It's going to disappear like Cinderella at midnight. But...
Cinderella didn't
No,
disappear.
she didn't. No. Maybe in a slightly bleaker version, but no.
Yeah.
My first one was I wanted to use the line from Blade Runner.
Oh,
where
wow.
it says, if you kill me now, these memories will be lost like tears in the rain. Because that's the most beautiful line. But I couldn't make it work with the bill disappearing like tears in the rain. So I went for the Christmas pumpkin instead. Yeah.
Pumpkins aren't crisp. No, anyway, we're all over the place with our...
We're mixing up our metaphors.
No, hold on. Fairy tales, pantomimes. These are Christmas. These are festive.
Okay. I see the link.
Yeah.
Anyway, please.
Right, anyway.
Diane.
Here's what she
Make
said. Here's what
progress.
Sarah Olney said. Yes, as someone giving a speech in the Commons would say, I must make progress. No more interventions, please.
But then they make interventions immediately after. Like yesterday, the fellow was at Farms was like, I will not give way. Oh, I give way. It's like, what happened in that second?
Anyway, so here's what she had to say. So she said that basically the election that we've just had, okay, 2/3 of the votes, 2/3 of the seats in the House of Commons went to the Labour Party, but they got 1/3 of the votes cast. So they got 2/3 of the seats in the Commons, but just 1/3 of the votes cast. And she said nearly 60% of people who voted in the general election aren't actually represented in Parliament by the candidate they voted for. And it's the most, she claimed, most disproportionate election result that the country has ever seen. And she also did another little section all about disillusionment and how that breeds disillusionment with the process. And, 40% of people who could have voted, registered voters in the UK, didn't even turn out and give a preference in July. So that was her argument. We've covered PR and the pros and cons a lot on this because we get asked it a lot, don't we? But it was a really interesting vote. I think it's particularly because of that Labour bit, where quite a lot of MPs are keen on this, even though it's not on Keir's agenda.
Yeah, it's just one more thing, isn't it, that people are shifting away from. So we can see there isn't a problem with Labour at the moment, but as time goes on, will it get bigger? I think the only thing I'd add on PR is France has a more proportional representation, more proportional. It's not pure PR in France, but they're more proportionate, and they're in a right state right now. It took them 2 months to choose a prime minister. Michel Barnier, he's had a week in office, like 25 minutes in office, and they got rid of him again. And now they don't know what to do. You don't look at Ireland, who have a much more proportional system, and they've had an election. They don't really know how to go about forming a government. So, is the system we've got right now great? No. Is it about as good as what's happening in Ireland or what's happening? Because we've got a government who can get in and do some things, right? Right now, this government can do whatever they want. We're going to, as we record later today, we're going to hear about them making quite big changes to the policing, right? Because that's a policy they've got, and this is how they're going to do it. In France, they can't do that. In Ireland, that's really hard. Now, I know you can say, yeah, but these aren't the people doing things aren't who we wanted them to be. And that's a really valid point, because if they're doing things that we don't want, then that's not great. But I think that looking at the three systems this week in particular, it's really interesting. And any proportional change, we would just have to be very careful to make sure that we didn't get dragged into these kinds of... Because in 2024, politics is intense.
Yeah.
And our politics is way more centrist because of first past the post. And centrist is often used as a bad term by people on the left because they think people should be on the left. But most people agree that on the far right, we prefer centrist to that. In France, well, whatever. Anyway, I've made my point.
And none of it matters because it's not going to change. Doesn't benefit the two biggest parties, so we won't get PR anytime soon. But Tatton, talking of big votes, what was our most popular post of the week?
Oh, well, the most liked post of the week was the result to the assisted dying vote. It was one of those votes that I will remember watching forever. Some of the ones for Brexit, the Brexit times. I remember the smoking ban. I watched genuinely not knowing how it was going to go. Like, sometimes the House of Commons just does what it's going to do, and nobody knows how it's going to go. Most of the time you do. Most of the time, before the vote happens, it's pretty clear what's going to happen. So the tellers, when a result's being announced, the tellers stand up, and the winning tellers, the winning people have been counted, stand on the right-hand side, so you can tell immediately who has won as soon as they line up. I was like, oh, okay. So I knew it was going to be it, and then they announced it, and the majority of 55 MPs have backed assisted dying. That doesn't mean it's now legal. It means it goes through to the next stage. Lots of the people who said they were voting for it at second reading said they were only voting for it because they wanted to have more scrutiny. And if some changes weren't made, or if things weren't, they would still vote against it at third reading. So there's a long way to go with it. I'm not going to get into the arguments either way now, because we did a long podcast on those a couple of weeks ago. You can go back and listen to it, and I don't think much has changed since then. But yeah, it was a huge moment, and I felt really proud of our Parliament during that debate and that vote, and the way it was done, and the intelligence and the articulacy, and I thought it was wonderful.
Yeah, that was commented on a lot, wasn't it? And you know, Kim Leadbitter, who brought it as a private member's bill, particularly just stood out for having brought the debate, shown the tenacity around bringing the debate. Someone who isn't a traditional MP, so is an MP because her sister died, and she became the MP in her place, and her background is completely different career-wise, completely different. And the fact that she did that, I think, is incredible.
Yeah. If only all of our parliamentary debates were conducted like that, eh? Anyway, definitely one that we will continue to update you on as it goes through. Lots coming up. But for now, it's time to move on to the mailbag. So this is where we answer your questions, and we got a whole bunch today, and a whole variety. So I am going to restrict answers to 60 seconds, Tatton.
60 seconds? Easy.
I mean, I will also restrict answers to 6 seconds for Diane, but that's the one who needs reminding. Okay, so...
It's fine, because when you whisper, I can't hear you. So it's fine.
Lovey asks, why are we as the next generation no better off? A degree equals a standard wage, high deposit, high mortgage rates, pay tax on earnings, house, car insurance, road tax, etc., etc.
I think that we are all better off than we have been. I think that we have. I mean, in terms of absolute poverty, we have much lower absolute poverty than we have done in the past. I think that that if we look at, well, I'm about to go on a thing about the free market driving up quality of life. Which is a controversial opinion. It's really hard, because when we're talking about not being better off, we're talking about in comparison with other people, not in absolute terms as to how well off we are. Lovia's got a degree, but if a huge number of people go to university, then there can be no expectation that a degree is going to massively improve your wages compared to other people, because everyone's gone. No, don't give me the time. don't give me the... I am warming up
here.
I'd
restrict you to
I am warming up.
I warned you.
Do you know what? I know. This isn't even answering the question. I'm really... Lovey. I don't know. Apologies. Please do drop us a DM. I'd love to know what you mean by this. What you mean? Because I certainly, living standards is a really interesting topic. And some things like not having houses built have massively impacted living standards for everybody. So please do drop us a DM, and maybe we can get a foot deeper into it next week. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I mean, I would get deeper into it now, but Charlotte's horrid.
I think, though, right, this whole thing of you live your life in the hope that you make it better for the next generation is something that Keir Starmer even talks about. He talked about that, like that aspiration of his parents to say, I'm making it a better place for you in the future. And I think that is what people feel isn't the thing.
Yeah, especially with my generation. Well, our generation, we're technically all millennials here, but as a young millennial, it's like the idea of being able to own a house is,
Yeah,
far less likely than I think for my parents.
Yes.
Even though they were buying a house in the 80s when there was high inflation and stuff. Not high inflation, high interest rates, all that kind of stuff. But houses were just so much cheaper then. And so it does feel like, and rent's ridiculously expensive as well, regardless of where you live. So everything does seem to be a bit harder than it was.
I think house prices and housing
is
at
the
heart of so much of this, and especially like one of the things that Lovey asks is about car insurance, and I think where I live, because you can buy cars on hire, just pay monthly, lease your cars, pay monthly. A load of kids don't have houses and have no expectation of having a house, so they have like stupidly expensive cars. They don't save. They just put all their money into their car. And when you have lots of young people driving expensive cars, that pushes car insurance up for everybody. So again, the kind of externalities here are higher car insurance, and house prices have driven them to cars, which has driven up car insurance. So it all comes down to housing.
Housing is definitely.
That's interesting.
I think it is huge, and you see it. You see the polarity on the internet, don't you? That and the whole generational thing is always about boomers and how much they could buy a house for. Always. But like you say, Tatton, if you take this in a more abstract form, we're all living longer. We've got technology. We've got better healthcare. But there are certain things that don't feel better.
There's relative. There's all kinds of different ways. So do get in touch. I mean, Charlotte, how's your timekeeping going?
I mean, you shouted at me as soon as I did it, so again. Right. Luke asks, why is it so hard for young people to get their first job?
I think, Luke, that goes back to what we're talking about degrees. I think that people who get a degree, it used to be when there were very few people who got degrees, it was really clear where your degree would take you and what way you would go with it. And now a huge number of people, a huge percentage of young people do go on to university after school. It's hard. There aren't that many of what we would have thought of degree level jobs out there. We have full employment mostly in this country. There are very few, but it's just about finding a job you want. So it's not hard for young people to get their first job. It's not hard for a 16-year-old to get their first job in absolute terms at Tesco or wherever. If we're talking about kind of a more white-collar work type, it's about industries, and maybe it's also about expectations. You can't get the job you most want as your first job. You have to work up. But maybe we see. I've been told to shut up, so I won't even finish that sentence.
No, you can. This is why I don't cut
Charlotte,
in so that you can finish
I don't think that the gesture should be the middle finger like that. I think that's just really rude.
Lovely listening.
It's really rude.
I don't want to cut in because I want you to continue to finish.
No, I mean,
if
I don't know. I don't know about expectations. I don't know. I'm really interested in that question, Luke, because I don't know. My experience speaking to young people isn't that it's hard to find their first job. So I'm interested to know why you think that. And again, please do DM in, because I want to know more about these questions.
If I may add something, as someone who taught at a uni, I think part of the issue is having those transferable skills and the social skills, the professional skills. I think there's so much focus on academic and grades and stuff, because loads of jobs that wouldn't have traditionally needed a degree now require a degree, and especially for this generation that have their development has been changed by the pandemic, and that affects social skills as well. So I think that is a big thing at the moment.
I mean, the pandemic could be an answer for literally every question.
Yeah, it could.
Well, yes.
Ever.
Yeah.
I mean, the impact, I think we talked about it last week, the impact of the pandemic on everything is so huge.
Okay. Dave asks, I have a feeling people want change and can see either Reform or the Green Party having a bit of an uprising. What are your thoughts?
Reform are having a huge uprising. Huge. I mean, if Elon Musk does give them, I mean, they talk about $100 million. It won't be that in the end, I don't think. But Farage is a campaigning machine. They are well funded. They have more. They're going to have more. They have 100,000 members now. About 130,000 people could vote in the Conservative membership. Like, they have this. Reform are going to have an uprising. The Conservatives are struggling. Reform have no danger of getting into government, so they don't have to say things that are realistic. They can just kind of throw mud on everybody. The Green Party, I don't think are having. They aren't having an uprising at the moment. I mean, they're doing all right. They've got more MPs than they've ever had before, but they're not. We're not seeing them an insurgency, so to speak, from them. I think maybe that's because they're much clearer about their policies, and their policies are not centrist.
And funding as well. I think funding hugely is something they struggle with.
They don't have the money.
They don't have the money.
So why do, Diane? I mean, Carla Denyer is a very effective speaker. Adrian Ramsey is a very effective speaker. Why do you think that the Green Party get no money and the Reform Party get loads?
Well, this is... Go, Charlotte, you have something to say.
I wonder why. Well, apart from that, Reform is... Richard Tice is a multi-millionaire.
Yeah.
Zia Youssef.
Nigel Farage.
There's lots of multi-millionaires. Is probably a millionaire, at least. Green Party politicians and backers don't tend to really like the capitalist thing and be millionaires. The Greens don't like millionaires as it is.
They want to tax them quite a lot.
Yeah. So,
but.
I don't agree. I don't agree because I think there are plenty of millionaires who would vote Green, and there's plenty of Green. The fellow that runs Ecotricity, he was a member of the House of Lords. Like there are. I don't subscribe to the idea that anyone rich only cares about being rich and doesn't care about other things.
No. I'm not saying anyone rich. I'm just saying there's a lot of rich people who do support Reform and who are members of Reform, part of the senior leadership, MPs for Reform. So it's massively skewed towards millionaires. Not there are no millionaires who would support the Green Party. But Richard Tice used a lot of his own money to get Reform up and running. That is well documented. And he's
and
yeah,
and
their new chairman, exactly, Zia Youssef.
And I know you said before about them having no chance of coming to power, and that's absolutely true. But they are very vocal about targeting Wales, and this is something really new for them. But they believe that they can really get hold of the Senedd in 2026. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, they really do. I think we're talking senior, main opposition party stuff for them. But there is, because we watch a lot of press releases, we watch a lot of Parliament, we watch a lot of whatever, and we definitely see more energy about Reform than we do about the Conservative Party. The Conservative Party, at the moment, they haven't got themselves together. Do you know what? On Tuesday this week, Parliament spent 5 hours debating the National Insurance Bill rise. And then, on Wednesday this week, it was an opposition day, and the next day, the Conservatives chose to discuss the National Insurance rise. Why? Why are you doing this? So a small, more free, more loose, really well supported Reform Party just looks more energetic and more efficient than the Conservative Party. And maybe that's where the Green Party is struggling, because the Labour Party are taking up so much space. They don't have that freedom to the left that the Reform have to the right of Conservatives.
Right, all my timekeeping efforts have failed, so we're going to have to move on from the questions, and we'll leave the rest for next week. But now it's time for Government Watch. So, our focus this week is on banning things. We know that junk food ads will be banned from 9 p.m. from the 25th of October on TV and totally online. Totally online.
Yeah, it says paid for junk food ads will be totally banned online. Now, we'll get into this because how do you... Yeah, anyway.
Yeah. Tatton, you like talking about bans? Talk to us about this one.
I do like talking about bans. In fact, I spoke about bans in both my books. I think that we live in a world where obesity is killing people, and it's killing much more disproportionately poor people. It's the first time in the history of the globe that beings that are worse off are fatter, right? Like it's complete inversion. So obesity is killing poor people. Smoking is killing poor people. Disproportionately. The government should step in, right? The government should step in and do something. But then the government is telling people what they can and can't do. And is that okay? If I want to smoke, I should be able to smoke. I could, like it's on me. I'm not going to make anyone else smoke. I'll just sit in my office on my own, just smoke cigarettes all day.
But at some point, presumably, you'll rock up to the NHS, which then does become everyone's problem.
Yeah, I've paid my taxes. Paid my taxes all my life. Yeah, but this is it.
Yeah.
Where does the line fall? Where and when we get into obesity, goodness me. Like, already you're not allowed to have chocolate bars by the till. It used to be when you got to the till at the supermarket, there was like all the sweets. So you go, I'll have a Mintero as you were checking out. And now now it's like magazines. But so you can go, I'll
Healthy
have a
snacks.
I'll have a take a break. The food I choose to eat, though. Do I want the government telling me the food I choose to eat? Like, maybe yes. It's fascinating. So what we've got, what the government's done here is they've gone for junk food adverts, because it's like, no, you can eat what you want, but they can't market themselves to you. Same with what they've done with smoking. No, I don't need kind of smoking adverts. There's a big question when it's been debated in Parliament this week. They were saying it must work. Junk food advertising must work, or they wouldn't do it. So what they're saying now is, it won't have any effect. So, well, if it won't have any effect, why are you spending so much money on advertising? And then the other thing, and I'm going to hand it down in a second, but the other thing that isn't banned is gambling advertising. Because again, should the government be stopping you from gambling? If I want to put £2 on a horse, why can't I do that? But also, gambling's a serious problem. You'll never guess who it's disproportionately a problem for. Disproportionately a problem for poor people. So the government protecting people from themselves, and they haven't done anything about gambling. If you every football match,
they did slot limits.
Every football match,
I'm going to tell you,
they did slot limits. Yeah. But every single football match, at least one of the teams playing will be sponsored by a gambling firm. If you listen to the radio, if you haven't got Sky Sports, you want to listen to it. A lot of the games are on TalkSport, where the coverage is presented by Betfair, and they keep cutting out to what the odds are at this point. Yep. And then when you get to the ad breaks in half time, they have other gambling firms having so if you haven't got, and then obviously the TV is wall to wall gambling as well. They're just like, there's no way to consume it. If you listen to 5 Live and you don't watch any football and you only listen to the games that are on 5 Live, you can listen to it without gambling. It's just hugely problematic. But banning things is a really difficult thing too.
Yeah.
Look at cannabis. Loads of people smoke weed. Anyway, Diane, tell me your thoughts. I'm waffling.
No, it's fine. I just think it's really, really blunt, isn't it? It doesn't. So the problem with a ban, an all-out ban, And they're doing it because like you say, the obesity rates are huge, have skyrocketed, even in primary age children now. And tooth decay is another issue. So it's obesity and tooth decay. So ban junk food. That all seems to make sense. But it's nothing's root cause with a ban, is it? Nothing's really exploring why we've got to this point. It's very much about just like, you've got a leaky tap in your kitchen, so you're putting a load of towels down, but you're not actually fixing the leaky tap, okay? So, we're not really talking about why people aren't cooking at home, why they don't have the time to, why they don't have the resources. We're not talking about why people aren't making better choices for themselves because they're stressed. And, these are things that we're not addressing just by putting a ban in place. But it's something to try and get those numbers down.
Yeah, I mean, the something needs to be done without a shadow of a doubt, and where to draw that line is something that's purely politically ideological. So someone like David Davis in the House of Commons would say, you don't draw that line at all.
Yes. Total
personal, civil liberties.
Yeah.
And he was very, very nearly the leader of the Conservative Party. And very, very nearly the Prime Minister, because the Conservative Party were almost inevitably going to become the largest group after Gordon Brown, the 2015 general election. So David Davis, who was a staunch libertarian, was nearly Prime Minister of this country. And then you've got other people who would say, no, we need to do much, 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 much more.
But the libertarians, right, this is really interesting. When you look back to all the times where people have been really against government interference, and when you look back at them now with hindsight, it's stuff like seatbelts and, wearing high vis on building sites. And it's stuff like that people argued against, that in hindsight, when you look back, it's actually quite amazing. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure this debate will rumble on. But for now, we've talked about what's been happening this week, but what is coming up? Diane, what is in your crystal ball?
I just had a little peek into what's in Parliament next week, so I'm not sure I caught everything that is there, but what caught my eye was on Monday, Westminster Hall are going to be talking about firework regulations. And since we've just had all fireworks season, and it's it's because of 2 huge e-petitions that they're even talking about it. So I think that would be a fairly good debate.
Yes. And Tatton, what's in your crystal ball?
The bill that protects buildings after the Manchester Arena bombings, the families of some of the victims of those bombings have lobbied for a bill. I think it's called Martin's Law in the end. Then that finished its stage and it's go way through the Commons, and it just puts it makes the buildings have plans and think through a duty of care to the people within the building in the case of a terror attack.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for listening, and we will hopefully speak to you again next week. Thank you very much, Tatton and Diane.
Bye,
Thanks,
bye,
Charlotte.
bye, bye.
Bye.